You're listening to She's Got Drive podcast, the podcast that inspires women to be the driver in their own life through the life and stories of Black women with drive. And I'm your host, Shirley McAlpine. I'm a business consultant, an executive coach, and a leadership facilitator working with people and organizations to live their lives by design and not default. Welcome back to another episode of She's Got Drive, and welcome back to part 2 of my interview with Cecilia Nelson-Hurt from L'Oreal. And you're going to love this episode. And so this episode, we get into more around her work and her commitment to making a difference and how she's making a difference in L'Oreal and how that is kind of has come out of that into other parts of her life. And what does that mean for us when we're called to fulfill our purpose in that way? So it's a really lovely episode. I'm sure you're going to get lots out of it, so I'm excited about that. And I am really, really happy that we get to spend another week with Cecilia. So here we are. I hope that your summer's going really well. It's going well for me. I am really feeling in good shape. I'm really feeling in good shape. And one of the things that is has started to emerge through my exercise and my running is these things called running insights. You know, I noticed that when I'm, going out for my run, it's a time of reflection. So I get these really great insights about life and what I'm doing and how I'm approaching it and all of that. And so I've started to post them on Instagram, on my IGTV. That's really what I post on IGTV. That's the only thing I really post. And so if you want to find out what my running insights are, about making connection, about trusting ourselves, about changing our perspectives and then changing our results, so there's all different types of things that I'm sharing on there. Then head over to my Instagram account and just see my hashtag running insights and then listen to what I'm sharing there, because I'm getting a lot out of that, and I hope you too. If you are loving She's Got Drive podcast, please rate and review the show. Share the show as well. Find one person in your life who you want to share the show with. It makes such a difference to us when you rate the show, you review the show, and share the show. And I want it to expand and to grow. There's some things that I'm working on to start to develop for the She's Got Drive listeners and an audience. And thank you so much for those of you who have been with me from the beginning. I know that you're out there, and I appreciate all of you as you join and start to listen to the podcast. And I really love hearing from you and hearing what you got out of it. So please keep being in touch, keep rating and reviewing the show, and keep sharing the show. So let's head back to Cecilia and part 2 interview. And this time we pick up focusing on her work and how she's doing her work in the diversity inclusion space. I do want to come back to your work, though. I do want to come back to, and I also want to, because I do want to explore how your work and talk about how your work is expanding into the yarn and knitting community and craft community, because I think it's a example of like being called to something and then answering a call.
Yeah.
So can you share with us a little bit of that? Because I think people can hear. I'm hesitating 1 minute. I would love for you to share it, because when we listen to that, there'll be other people who can maybe are being called to something and they might be not.
Oh, I love that. I love that call to something, right? Yeah. So for the past 20 years, I've always had some aspect of my job that has to do with inclusion and diversity. So right now I happen to sit in a role that is responsible for strategy, but I've been a diversity relationship manager, looking at historical Black colleges, looking at recruitment, leading an affinity group. So I've always had a diversity lens, right? So that's important in my story. Mm-hmm. And for the past 20 years, I've been a knitter, right? I learned to crochet from my grandmother when I was a child and moved away from it, right? I didn't pick up a yarn and any sort of needle in high school and in my 20s. But when I did pick up knitting, I picked it up with such a passion. And so much so that, I have my girlfriends who don't knit at all, right? My friends who are just my friends, whether they're my childhood friends or they're my friends through the D&I work that we all do. We have that in common. But a large percentage of my friends now knit. So knitting really is part of my life. It's not even a lifestyle. It's just a part of my life. Right. And I travel, and that's why Jerome being supportive is important. We travel, we go to a yarn store. Right.
Wherever you are in the world.
Wherever I am in the world, if I'm in Germany, if I'm in Stockholm, I'm finding a yarn shop. I don't need to speak the language. I speak yarn. That's all that matters. Right. You speak yarn?
Knit one per one is what you say.
Let's talk. Right. So the knitting community of modern day with social media is global. Mm-hmm. And so there are people that I now can call friends, that live in Paris, that I met them on Instagram. And now when I go to Paris, we go to dinner. When I go, we're legitimately friends. Like I know their lives, I know their kids and, their spouses and so forth. So back to the community, earlier this year, there was a diversity watershed moment, right? Where there was a statement that was made that really spoke to lack of awareness, bias, privilege, all the words, right? And then that domino effect really, it was more than just a domino. It was like when the domino
watershed, I would say, for the community.
It's watershed because it didn't just trigger the topic of race and ethnicity. It triggered the topic of privilege and belonging and intersectionality and unconscious bias and all these things. And I, this one tipping point really reverberated around the world, and it was internalized by different people in different ways. Yeah. And so people of color, so the term BIPOC, so Black, Indigenous people of color around the world started speaking their truths. And I joined in the conversation. So first I was like, okay, I'm just going to say this statement and, I live my life and you can see my life and I can show you better than I can tell you. But then I realized that as people were talking, that there was a need for other voices, right? So not trying to rank the voices in the discussion, but there was obviously a need for my perspective as a practitioner, as a fibrist, right? So I have that, I'm not the only one, but when I look at the intersectionality of me as a BIPOC person, me as a diversity practitioner, and me as a fibrist, right? I occupy this very interesting Venn diagram, right?
Right, exactly.
And so the circles of all of these came together, and I started talking about diversity and inclusion and speaking my own truths about having not good experiences in yarn shops and not seeing myself in the community, but doing it in such a way that I found myself teaching. Right. So I'm going to explain to you what this word means and show you how it shows up and show you what it looks like. And for some reason, people were attracted to my message. Yeah. Right. And so I gained in followers, I gained in interactions, both on the front end of social media, both as well as on the back end where people were messaging me and we were having conversations. I joined my girlfriend's video where five of us, we came together to have a conversation. And then I spoke at the Edinburgh Yarn Festival. I did a panel. I moderated a panel. And so I've been speaking now. And so I found myself this, I don't want to say reluctant activist, because I think I've always been a bit of an activist, but all of a sudden my circle of my passion for diversity and my passion for marginalized people and speaking up and my circle for my passion of knitting, right? And then you talked about how I love to connect. So I'm connecting at work, I'm connecting in knitting. These circles really joined.
Right.
And so now I am doing more of the knitting talking, right? About how can we advance in the community? How can we be more intentional as we think about how we are excluding or including others? Really I've had a lot of conversations with white women as well as white men on privilege, on white fragility, on, how we all can play a role in this. And so I'm at an interesting point now, right? I'm loving the work that I'm doing. I'm busier than ever at work, but now I'm also busy in the community.
Yeah.
And it's been a challenge, right? Knowing when to turn it off, knowing when to protect my own space, right? I'm also a bit of an empath. And so, I was at a knitting event this weekend, and I moderated a panel on Friday morning, and then I walked the marketplace. And so people were coming up to me, thanking me for the panel or saying they'd been following me. And as an empath, something about my open face, people just want to tell me stuff. Like they want to share, they want to not unburden themselves, but I think in some cases they want validation for their efforts or advice or just to share. And so what happens with me as an empath, I take that on. Right. Like I feel like I feel it. I viscerally feel it. And so my friend Lewis, who was with me, Brooklyn Boy Knits, at around 10 o'clock, he was like, "You're done." Right. I'm like, I'm so done. I couldn't take any more.
Right.
It's a lot. It's really, and then I had to, I was like, I gotta go, because I don't want person 100 who speaks to me get any other me than person 1 got, right? And so I had to take myself out of the environment and just recharge. And so while I am an extrovert, right, I do have my introverted moments where I need to step away and not speak and not be spoken to and not think about anything.
I think
it's harder and harder.
Yeah, I think, one of the reasons why I think it's so important, this conversation, is there's so many reasons. Let's start with where you are now. Like, the conversation is about your self-care. You're taking care of yourself. You're protecting yourself. You knowing when you have used up your reserve, for the day or for the week or for the month, and that you need to take yourself out of the space to take care of yourself, because this kind of work is energetically exhausting work, because you are engaging in very difficult conversations where there's high levels of emotion, there's high levels of issues around trust, there's differences in the room, the dynamics that you're managing when you're moderating a panel of this nature. So it's challenging work, plus our own personal experiences that we are trying not to, like, how can I bring something that's useful and then not, so having done D&I work, equality work for 30 years, I know what you're saying. And then this has been a place where you had rest and relaxation before, and this is not that now. So where are you getting your rest and relaxation? Because before you used to go to knitting, and now you don't have that. And so when we are called to something, can we step in? I mean, you can speak to the degree of how do we make sure that we are giving, but not giving so much that we sacrifice self.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not going to be that martyr.
Right.
No, I'm going to be that person, right? So knitting still is, I still love to knit. So I don't think, I have an injury and I take a pain pill, and I still go knit because it's so important for me. So I still decompress through knitting. There's something about the motion of my hands and the needles, and my mind can go, or I can listen to an audiobook. So knitting, I will never let go of. I hope, God willing, that I always am able to. Knitting was there for me when I lost my mom, when I lost my grandmother, through devastating life events. And so knitting was my friend, right? And so I'm not going to leave her or him or they. But what I have to do is be mindful of how much I'm giving, right? And so the lesson in self-care, it's still a lesson that I'm learning. And I remember Lisa Nichols said many years ago, feed people from your saucer, not from your cup.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So from your overflow. I tend to occasionally still feed people from my cup, right? And not replenish. So I'm trying to be more intentional with mapping out times for me to decompress, as well as recognizing those signs, right? So there was a time where I would have been in the situation that I mentioned on Friday, and I would have pushed myself to stay. Right. So FOMO was real. So I'm like, oh wait, they're getting ready to have a what do they have? Pajama party. They were having a knitting pajama party.
Right.
And so the dinner finished. So I'm like, I'm going to miss the pajama party. But there was a time where I'm like, oh, wait, the pajama party? I heard that's where all the fun happens. And I would push myself to go there.
Right.
And I would stay there. People would have kept coming up to me, right? Which is fine. I would engage. But then on Saturday, I would not be at 100. My battery would not have fully sufficiently charged.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm learning to step away more. I'm learning no is a complete sentence. You don't have to be everywhere. That's okay. Right. So I'm learning that I don't, because the don't have to be everywhere was as much a part of my own fear of missing out, as well as fear of disappointing my friends. Right. So I don't want to go to this, whatever it is. I'm so tired. But if I don't go,
Sometimes going to be upset.
Trisha will be so mad that I'm not there. But if Trisha's my friend, I can say to her, look, girl, I'm really sorry. I really want to be there, but I am completely done for it. Or, you know what? I'm going to come for a second and then I have to go. Right? Set the parameters.
Great. I think that we can do better or people can. I think there's a number of things there. One is, this is so critical because there's so many of us who give a lot in this space around equity because it's something we're passionate about and we give sometimes freely, and because we want to see the change, we just think, well, if I just keep on giving, then I know, and you just can't do it all. You have to. How do I give without taking on the burden of it? And that's very different, and it's not helpful in the long term if you're just too burnt out. And so
it serves no one.
Exactly. So self-care is not optional. I mean, self-care is not optional, period. But really, if you're going to take something like this on, it really isn't optional. It really is critical, and it's like a competency, which I'm not sure people relate to it like that. But that's where I start to see it. I see it as a competency. I see it as a strategy. I don't see it as a kind of like, oh, let's have some self-care. No,
and it's also a muscle that we need to develop. So for me, again, I'm still on my understanding how much self-care is needed, right? And so there's so many things about me besides the FOMO-ness, a people pleaser, right? So I'm a people pleaser. And I'm also somebody who feels that you need to be productive all the time. And that's a lesson that I need to unlearn, right? And, when you come from people or a culture where hard work is valued, when you're not doing something, there are messages that you tell. My husband and I, we talk about this all the time because he's very big on napping. He's so good. Like, I envy his nap skill. Like, he can say, I'm going to go and take a nap and go and lay down and take a nap. I never say I'm going to go take a nap. If I'm going to take a nap, that nap has to be a ninja and sneak up on me and put me in a headlock when I least expect it. Because I'm not going willfully. Like, I'm not like, no, I don't want to nap. No, I don't want to nap. Right? So I've got to get better at being still.
Yes.
Because one, being still is when you hear God speaking. right? And so I've been trying to get up in the morning and meditate and be still. 2, it's okay to have a day where you don't do anything.
It really is.
And I'm still learning, right? So even on my so-called do nothing day, right? I call them pajama days.
Right.
When I get up, and I don't really plan those days. Like I might have a day with nothing planned, and then it turns into a pajama day. Like I'm like, oh, I'm not getting out. Oh wait, it's 11 o'clock. I'm still in my pajamas. Oh, it's 1 o'clock. Oh, I'm gonna go, and it's 3 o'clock, right? And so I have these accidental pajama days. Even on those days, I'm still doing something. I'm knitting. I'm planning my week. I'm like, so there's no such thing as just sitting still for me. It's very hard. And so I want to get better at giving myself permission to just sit and binge watch.
Yes.
But I always feel like if I'm sitting, I should be doing something to show for this time. Like, what do I have to show for this day?
You know what you can show? Rest.
What does that look like?
What does it look like? If you're a listener, a regular listener, you know that I've had duvet days. I share about my duvet days, and I want to get better at doing more duvet days in the year. I mean, I still have my own lessons to learn around this too. But the difference is, and the duvet day came from a coach of mine. And when I was really at a point where I was exhausted, so in this coaching session that I had with her, with my coach, it was like a light bulb moment that I could sleep more, that I could give myself permission to go to bed and have a nap, it really was like this moment in the coaching. It was like, you mean I could go to sleep? You mean I could take a nap? And I forget that I work for myself, but I put myself at the desk. I schedule myself up to the yin yang, as they say, and I'm really going at it because I need to use every single moment before I, go and get the kids or whatever things I've got to do. And so I really understood that it was, you said permission, the permission to give ourselves that gift is first and foremost.
Yeah.
And then once we give ourselves permission, then we can test out different things. And then she had this idea of the duvet day. And I was like, okay, now the difference between the day before and the day after is so extraordinary when I just take a half a day even in bed.
Okay, so what, because your duvet day sounds a lot like my PJ day.
What's the difference? The difference, one is it's planned. It's in the schedule as a duvet day.
Okay. So it's not an accidental day.
It's not accidental. It means that in terms of my run up to that day, it means that there's no communication on email and stuff on a duvet day. I'm not like doing...
You're unplugging?
I'm unplugging.
Okay.
There's no... So I've planned for it because I know the duvet day is happening the next day. So I know... What do I need to handle the day before so that it's not on my mind? That's the difference. So it's not external. The other thing is I make sure that I have all the food and stuff that I need, all the some fruit and stuff. I have those things that I need. So I'm not thinking I'm not rummaging in the fridge for something. It's all I'm taken care of. I mean, I do, if it's a time when the kids are at school, then I do have to kind of drop my son off or something. So I'll get up, drop my son, I'll come back, but then I go back into bed. So it's more intentional. I think about what are the kind of lovely things that I want to do when I'm in. So I'm not sleeping the whole time, but I am in bed. And so then I have to make sure that I sleep some of the time. And so... That's the thing. So it's planned for.
And you're in bed. Okay, so
I'm literally in bed under the duvet.
In bed. Okay, because my PJ day, right? My husband's like, sometimes you act like the bed is on fire. I jump out of the bed so fast. He's like, I thought we were sleeping late. I'm like, it's 8:30. I slept late. What do you mean? And then I'll go to the couch. And again, the nap ninja will, I go on the couch and I'm doing XYZ, and then I wake up and I'm like, oh wait, I just napped.
You see this difference? I'll tell you what the difference is between the couch and the bed. Well, I don't know what the bed. I don't have work in my bedroom, so I don't know if that. I think you have to have a practice of that. The thing about the couch is there are too many things in the environment to grab your attention of what to do, of things to do.
Because the laptop is there, the basket of unfinished knitted projects. Like, hey, knit me.
Right. There's work in wherever your couch is. There's usually work around it, and that your bedroom is a place of rest.
Yes,
it's familiar. You have the patterns, the neural pathways that says this is what I do when I'm in this space. I rest, I chill, I relax, and so it is different. So even when I take a nap, the difference between, do I want a quick nap that's gonna revitalize me to keep me going at my work? Sometimes like a power nap. Well, then I'll do it on the couch, because that sounds funny. Because I will rest on the couch because I only want a power nap because I want to get up and be engaged again.
No, I get that.
Right, but when I want to rest, I'll go to bed. You go to bed.
Well, no, I would admit that my body is trained, so I don't do, which is the other thing, I don't do things in bed, right? I shouldn't say that. But I really try to make my body know that when we're in the bedroom, we're going to bed.
Right. It really is important.
Yes. There are very few moments, and Jerome can tell you, because he's anti-laptop in the bedroom.
Right.
So there are very few times when I'll bring my laptop in the bedroom. If I do, it's because I just want to be next to him and he's in bed.
Right. And you have to do something.
And I have to do this, expense report that needs to be submitted, and I'll bring it in. But I am trying to get better at the bedroom being a laptop-free room. It's not technology-free yet, but it's definitely laptop. It's more laptop-free than not.
Yeah.
And it's
a sanctuary. It's a place of sanctuary. Create your room, your bedroom. Like, if there's one space where you could create a sanctuary, then that's a place to do it. And then to know that it's a restful place. Like, there's candles and there's incense and there's all of those things that really elicit, or humidifier, that elicit rest and relaxation. And we work so hard, we give so much. It's important to create the environments where rest can happen, as well as us really giving ourselves permission to rest too. So I encourage you to try at least once a duvet day. Some of my listeners have actually contacted me and said they've tried out the duvet day. It's amazing. They've now scheduled it at least one a month or twice a month, and they're finding the difference. Yeah, I haven't got to twice a month, but once a month, and they're finding the difference it's making.
So I'm going to try a duvet day. I'm going to turn my PJ day into a duvet day. Mm-hmm. Can I knit in the bed?
You can knit in the bed because you find that relaxing.
I do. Okay.
You find that relaxing. But if you find that, just work on a project that's easy for you, that's really not the one that's like giving you like, why is it, I don't know if that is for you. I find that sometimes. I have a project that's like, because I'm a new sweater knitter. I'm not like dumb big item. Yeah, I'm Mr. Bubble. So to find, that's what I would say. Do things that are going to give you rest, but it does that for you, so it elicits that for you. You can read a book, but you don't read so when I'm reading, I don't read a book that's to do with work. A lot of my reading is non-fiction books.
It's heavy.
So I don't do that. I'm not going to be reading stuff around race on my duvet day. I'm just not going to be doing that. Okay. Can I ask you a couple more questions, then we can, because I'm mindful of your time and grateful of the. One of the questions that I've been asking all my guests is, what's been a courageous moment in their life? And a courageous moment being an action that comes from the heart, that may be on behalf of another or behalf of themselves, that kind of went over, surpassed fear and got you into action. So what has been a courageous moment that you can share with us?
I think it's courageous when I go live on Instagram, I'm not editing it. right? And so I'm speaking, and I don't have a script. I'm speaking from my heart. I'm speaking my passion. And it's courageous because not everyone is going to accept what I'm saying. I could open myself up for attacks, for trolls, or whatever the term is. Mm-hmm. I also have to be mindful because while I'm speaking Cecilia the knitter, I still work for a company.
Yeah.
Right. And we've seen many people get a little too rogue, forgetting they work for a company and lose their jobs.
Right.
Right. I don't want to let the halo, or I don't say the halo because it's not the right term, but I don't want to let L'Oreal or the fear of losing my job prevent me from speaking my truth. Right. So yes, I work for L'Oreal, love what I do, but in some way, I think my voice right now is bigger than my role at L'Oreal.
Yeah.
Right. I think that my role at L'Oreal.
It's aligned, though, isn't it? You know,
it's definitely aligned. It's aligned. And without a doubt, I think it adds some credibility on why you might want to listen to me. Oh, well, if this major, international company is paying her, she might know something. So maybe we might want to listen. And that's great. But I'm really speaking from, as well as the knowledge, but from my heart and passion that I really want to make a difference. And so I don't think I've said anything really controversial. I'm challenging people, and I want to challenge people to think, and I want to do more of that, right? I was talking to my husband about this the other day, saying I really want to do more talking where I'm talking about the things that we don't talk about, right? Or we're starting to talk about now. And so I want to be courageous in my voice and, say things that I believe are my truths, and not let fear of how they could be interpreted or misinterpreted stop me, or fear that while I am a people pleaser and I'm learning how to move out of that skin, right? That sometimes the thing that I'm going to say is not going to be pleasing to everyone. Right. And I need to be, and I want to be okay with that, right? So fine, I'm going to make a statement, and if I lose some followers, or someone says, well, I don't agree with that, that's fine. Right. But I can't not speak my truth for that fear. So I want to be courageous in the opportunities. And, when I see something, when I experience a microaggression, I am getting better at calling it in the moment. Right. Because there was a time, and I mean, occasionally it still happens, when a microaggression happens, and I sit there and I go through my head, like, okay, do I do this? Do I do that? And I can't, because I need to act on it.
Well, I think, I think there's so much in there. One is that I think your voice is such an important voice at this time, in this moment, in the fibre community. And given the nature of the conversation, we can guarantee there will be people who don't agree at some point. That's just a given. That's like inevitable. And then so thinking about ahead of time, how do I respond to that, and when do I respond to that, is something for us all to learn. When you're speaking your truth, and when you're standing, for me, I say, when you're standing on the right side of justice, not everyone obviously believes that, but when you're standing on the right side of justice, you know there'll be people who don't agree, and then can you be with that when you speak up, and can you be okay with that?
And that's where I'm at now. I'm so there right now. Like it's more important for me to be the truth teller, that I can't be concerned with who is offended or who doesn't agree with my truth. It's my truth. It's my story. It's, if you're offended, then I would encourage you to sit back with that and figure out why. Yeah.
And that's not for you to do, but that's their work
for me. It's not for me to make it easy for you, right? Like, I do believe that I have a role to play, and I'm fine to meet people where they're at initially, but then everyone needs to do their own work, right? So if what I'm saying you don't agree with, that's fine. You don't have to agree with it. But if there's something about my truth that hits you from a conscious perspective, then you should sit with that and figure out why. Like, maybe what she's saying, maybe she might be right.
Maybe there's some truth in, or where's the truth?
Or that's, you know what, that's her truth. I don't see that, but let me think about how I could see that, right? And that's where empathy.
Right. The other thing I want to say about this as well, and in terms of my experience or how I support people and when I work with people around this, is we make choices about the fights that we're going to fight and the battles that we're going to fight, because there are some people where I feel like I can engage in a conversation with them about it because I can see there's openness and willingness for them to look, for example. So let's have a conversation, let's explore, there's real authentic commitment to learning and discovering of themselves. And then there are people who are just like, this is just going to be a fight. This is not even like for the sake of anything, but because they're fighting. It's like, I don't want to, I have zero interest in that. And I'm able to see it much more and smell it much more than I did when I was younger. Yeah. And then I'm like, oh no, I'm not fighting that battle. And there are other times when I'm not going to fight the battle. You know why? Because I'm just exhausted. Yeah. Well, so in those moments, because I think I can't be fruitful and helpful when I'm exhausted. So then I'm not going to engage. And so there's multiple reasons, but it's like from a conscious place of like stopping, thinking, exploring, and then making a choice about what's my next action versus reaction.
Yeah, it's so funny. I think, and I call it, this burden that we as D&I practitioners or equity practitioners bear. It's kind of like, once your eyes are open, once you've eaten the fruit of knowledge, and now you can't help but see things. And really quickly, when something happens, you go through that discussion that you just said, like, okay, this just happened. Do I say something? How do I say it? Is it going to be received? How, so you play it out, and you play it out in a matter of seconds before making a decision to act or not act. Right. More than likely, we tend to act if depending on the environment, right? Yeah. And so I'm definitely at a place where I want to be more intentional with my acting when I see things, using the moments to educate, right? Not from a place of hierarchy that I know best, but a case of assuming that that some good can come from the interaction. Right. Right. So you just did this. Let me tell you why what you did or what you said to me was offensive, or how I heard it. Or is that what you meant? Yeah.
Yeah, let me just say what the impact that it had on me. Yeah. I don't know whether you intended it or not. I want you to know the impact that it had. Yeah. And can you hear that? And then can you get a sense of where it might have come from? Yeah.
No, it's it's
a skill. It's an art, actually.
No. One of my mentors is so good at it, and every time, something would happen to me where I didn't speak up, I would go and tell her. I'm like, what should I have said? And she comes with the, Marsha Haygood. She comes with such really good, well, what you should have said was, I'm like, well, that's so good. But again, she had, it's a muscle, it's a skill.
Absolutely.
And so I am working on that. Among the many muscles that I'm trying to build, I definitely want to be someone who can call things as they are in a way that allows people to hear what I'm saying and not get defensive. Because human nature is, if I tell you that you did something that offended me, you might want to explain your point. You might get defensive. And if I, the exchange that happens could either be fruitful, or we both could end up arguing and no one win. Right. And that's not what I want. I want to state my point. Hopefully you hear me, and whether you acknowledge it in the moment, but hopefully I leave you with some thoughts that you go back and you're like, oh, well, maybe she could be right. And now that I could see it from that perspective, I could see the role that I played in it.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes I can know when I am so angry that I know it can't be fruitful. Discussion.
Oh yeah.
Do you know? Yeah. So it's just like,
it's not gonna.
I am literally not going to say anything.
I'm not gonna say it right.
I can't say anything right now. I need to park it because I
can
feel
I'm living
emotion.
that right now. I'm living. I'm living I really want to say something, but I'm gonna hold my tongue for a minute because it's too emotional for me, and I know if I say it, it's not gonna.
It's not helpful. It's not helpful. You either, we have emotion, but not to be given by our emotion, and that's a piece of emotional intelligence and self-management where we can understand ourselves so much that we're saying, like, you know what? I literally am going to say nothing, because if I say something, it's going to go. It's only one way it's going, and we don't want it to go that way. I don't want it to go that way. So let me just take a time out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I talk about this all the time, and my husband and I, we say this back and forth to each other. And when I did my girlfriend Christy's her video on this whole situation in the knitting community, I talked about the think acronym. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Right? Mm-hmm. Or does it improve upon the silence? Right. So is the words that I say right now going to do all of those things? Maybe it's best for me not to. Yeah. Right. Maybe, so particularly if I'm coming from a heated perspective, and I know that I'm going to not come across well, but I'm really learning how to master my own space and my own language so that the words that I say can be met with the intention, so that you can, so there can be some positivity, some positive movement in the direction of the conversation. Yeah.
So let's just summarize it, because you said it really fast. So is it true? Is it helpful?
Is it true? Is it helpful? Does it
inspire
or improve upon the silence?
Right.
Is it necessary? And is it kind?
Think. Say,
right.
If you haven't heard that before.
And that's beautiful.
Really,
I saw it someplace, so I don't profess to own it. And if you go on Pinterest, you'll find a lot of little screen scratches. But we apply it in our marriage, right? So we're having an argument, and so many times, I like to have the last word. Mm-hmm. And so now it's like, okay, I'm going to say something. Let me think. We just had a fight. We just had a disagreement, whatever. And I need to say something. Is the next utterance that comes out of my mouth going to make the situation better?
Right.
Or continue us down that path of fighting?
Yeah. I love the phrase, does it improve on the silence?
Yeah.
I love that.
To say nothing.
Sometimes it's best to say nothing. If it's not, or another way I say, is it going to forward the action?
Exactly.
Is it moving things forward? And if it's not moving things forward, then
silent.
Don't say it. That's one of the things I use in my facilitation. When we're at time, we're like, is what you're about to say going to forward the conversation? Because if it's not forwarding the conversation,
let's stop.
Let's time out on that. Yeah. You can stop and think about that, and you can be intentional about that. Yeah. This has been such a rich conversation.
We went all over the place.
All over. It's so great. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing at L'Oreal, for everything that you did at Chase, for who you are in the world, for the connections that you're making, for the work that you're doing in the fiber community, for the love that you give to your friends, for the love that you show to Jerome, and the inspiring demonstration you both are. For everything. I just love you so much.
I love you.
So wonderful. And, I just appreciate you spending time and sharing your wisdom and your experiences with us. It's just great.
Thank you. This was really good. It was so good for us to talk. And, we can go on for, as anyone can tell who's listening to us, we just love talking to each other, and we always find new perspectives. And so thank you, because every time I spend time with you, I do feel that I've gained something from it. And so, my lesson for today is I'm going to commit to a duvet day. Yeah. I'm going to commit to Yeah, I'm going to do that.
You're going to do that. I'm waiting to hear.
All day.
In bed all day.
Day.
Yes. I know you're going to find it challenging, but just stay in it.
Oh, no,
I know
no.
you're going to find it challenging, but stay
Without
with
doubt.
it. Stay with it.
Without
And
doubt.
then the next day, you can
See
send
how
me a
I
message.
feel.
And just go,
Okay.
oh my God. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you, my love.
I hope that you've been inspired to shift gears in your own life. Well, one of the things that I am present to is just how challenging equity work is. And this is not new news for me. I'm just really present to it at the conversation with Cecilia. You know, there are so many Cecilias around the world doing equity work, diversity inclusion work as their day job. You know, many of us are having multiple equity conversations just in our life, you know, and being activists and standing what I say is on the right side of justice in the ways that we know how to. And then there are people who take it on as their day-to-day experience, and they're difficult and challenging conversations, and then being called to do that in a broader sense to fulfill a purpose is also important and challenging work. And even though it is rewarding, it's also a lot. And so I feel grateful to Cecilia, but I also want to do a big shout out to every person who is out there who is standing for what's right and true and fair, you know, and to keep doing it, to keep moving, to keep committing, and at the same time to make sure that all of us are like really taking care so that you are here to keep fighting. You can't do that without taking care of yourself. Self-sacrifice is not a requirement. You know, you don't have to sacrifice yourself in order to do good work in the world. You could do both. You can look after yourself and you could do really good work in the world and really stand for what's right and true. So big shout out to everyone who's working in that way. I want to say I see you. I see you, and thank you for that. And thanks, Cecilia, for being a guest on She's Got Drive. Again, if you're loving the show, will you rate and review the show? If you let me know what you're getting out of the show as well. What are you taking on? How are you transforming your life? How are you changing the things in your life that you want to shift and alter? You know, what's showing up for you at this time in your life? You know, let me know. Get in contact with me. You can always contact me at shirleymcalpine.com/contact me. You can contact me through Instagram at Shirley McAlpine. You can through my direct messages, or you can email me, or you can find me on Facebook. She's Got Drive Facebook page. She's Got Drive is produced by Cassandra Voltalina. The music is by the awesome or female band Blonde. The song is called Circles. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, go well and stay well.